Hi there, and welcome to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I'm Dr. Jenna Carmichael. This is our special Journal Club edition. And today I'm here with Angela Orr of Angela Orr Consulting, and we're going to talk about HeartMath. And if you haven't heard about HeartMath, we're going to talk all about it, but it's a really great, interesting technique that is really useful for helping providers and patients as well. So I'm really excited to talk with you today, Angela. I know from my own personal experience working in the holistic space that a lot of us have come from traditional healthcare into the holistic space. So why don't you give us a little bit about kind of how you came to where you are now, a little bit about yourself? We'd love to hear it.
Thank you so much. And I am so honored to be here, Jenna. Thank you for inviting me on. I love to share this information because I think that it is so helpful and useful. I am a traditional pharmacist as far as being in community practice for most of my career, which has been, believe it or not, 37 years this year. I've been a pharmacist, so a long time. And I've always been a serial entrepreneur. So I've done a lot of different things during my career. I've owned and operated 2 pharmacies for 15 years. But back in 2012-13, like you said, we all have a story. Back in 2012-13, I was diagnosed and treated for breast cancer. And if from the outside looking in, you would think, oh, she had everything, 2 pharmacies, a lot of friends, family, but stress was killing me. Stress was literally killing me. I ended up with morbid obesity. I feel like I was probably a functional alcoholic, and now breast cancer. So I started on a journey. I've always been on a journey of self-development or self-awareness. You know, back in the day, I did landmark education, which those of you who may remember that kind of thing. But so I've always been open to that. And after I was successfully treated for what my oncologist said was or surgeon said was a boring case, which is a good time to be. Actually, she said uninteresting. So it's a good time to be uninteresting. And I started on this healing journey of not only, I said, because life would never be the same after that. You know, when something like that happens to you, you look at, most people will stop and think, okay, what's going on here? What can I do differently? And life is just not the same. I knew deep down inside that I would be fine, but I also knew I couldn't keep going the way that I lived previously. So during that journey, I have done a lot of different things, a lot of different paths. And where I ended up, I got the courage to sell the 2 pharmacies because that was, pharmacy ownership was just not the same. And I had them a long time, and I didn't have models where I could incorporate some other things that are now available to independent pharmacies. And I sold them. And I said, you know, I've got to find a way to be able to heal myself without popping pills.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I believe in medication and pills, but not as the first line, especially when it comes to stress. So during my journey, I've ended up being a certified HeartMath practitioner, certified life coach, and I'm also a certified stress and well-being assessment provider with HeartMath. So what I have found during this journey is that the HeartMath techniques and the HeartMath modality has changed my life.
And I don't know a lot about HeartMath. I think, I've heard about HeartMath through you and the different times that we have chatted, and I've looked into it a little bit. And I think that as a tool in a tool belt of many tools, that I think that it is a really interesting thought process because it incorporates a lot of the things that I also have personally found very useful. And that's meditative breathing techniques and just meditation in general, calming the brain down and just being in the moment and being mindful can be really, 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 really useful.
Yeah. And I think not just useful, but I like to say woo-woo works, because some people would think of this kind of thing in the past. Maybe I think the pandemic changed a lot of things and had people more open-minded. But in the past, people might have thought of it as woo-woo or out there or whatever. But what is interesting is that it's all science-based. And
Mhm.
that's what I like to say. Woo-woo works because it's science-based. And with HeartMath, and with so many of these modalities, well, with HeartMath in particular, there's almost 400 published studies and articles about how the tools and techniques that they use and teach biologically and chemically can change your internal state, which can change your external state. And so HeartMath is an organization out of Northern California that has been around for several decades. And their founder and what they have developed and what they promote to the world is that when you can get into a state of heart and mind coherence, you can actually change, as I said, your biology and physiology to be in a to really change your from disease, because you can change from disease. So the interesting thing about HeartMath is that you can, what they have proven site, so what HeartMath has really proven to me through the studies and through what they've done is that through these simple yet profound techniques and technology that they have, that you can actually help to heal yourself at an epigenetic level. So I'd like to go into that, or do you have?
Yeah, I think that that's the important thing, right? And I think that that's one of the things that, when we talk about lifestyle interventions, which this is a lifestyle intervention, and,
Absolutely.
getting a better handle on, when in the meditation world, we call it the monkey mind, right? It's all of the things that are popping around inside your head. And by kind of not necessarily tamping those down, but organizing those thoughts and pushing them aside and understanding that's a mental muscle that we're exercising here. And so by, doing this heart and mind connection, that's also a muscle, and that's also an exercise that as time continues, it's easier to do. It becomes more integrated into your everyday life. And I think that that's the thing. And I love that they have research, right? Because now we're seeing that it's not just the monks who meditate all day long that are getting the benefits from this. It's simple amount of time. How much time a day are we talking about when we're talking about HeartMath
So
techniques?
their studies have shown that 15 minutes a day, and it doesn't even have to be contiguous.
And that's amazing, right?
Some people do
In our
more.
time fueled society that is like, I don't have time to do this. 15 minutes, that's nothing. And if you did it 5 minutes a day, 3 times a day,
Yeah,
that's very easy to integrate into a busy schedule of any nature.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's what's really critical for people is to take that time because like you said, 15 minutes. And again, it's shown that, but it's consistency also, because what HeartMath has shown is that with consistent practice, you get an additive effect. So 1 and 1 is not 2, 1 and 1 can be 3. Because what happens is you have a baseline of resiliency or emotional intelligence, as I like to say. And what you're doing is you're increasing that baseline each time that you do this. So as far as healing at an epigenetic level, so everybody knows about genes. Most people know about epigenetics. So genes are what you're born with. They're just protein making machines in your body. So your genes make proteins for stress, they come out, not stress, to make hormones, to make, different proteins in your body. And what happens is your environment turns that gene on or off. So your environment can be toxins, food, good food or bad food, water, alcohol, the what you breathe in. But one of the biggest contributors to turning genes on and off is perception, is your thoughts. And more importantly, your perceptions, because you have thoughts and you see things, but then you interpret it and you have a perception about something. And I like to, and drugs actually turn genes on and off. That's what drugs do. So if drugs can do it, the whole premise of this is, why can't you do it in a lot of situations? Maybe not every, like I said, I do believe in medications for certain things, but like for stress reduction, better sleep, so many of the different things, controlling cravings, a lot of that you can do through really your thoughts and your perceptions.
And I think that that is one of the things that, with my traditional pharmacy training, I think that that's something that I've had to learn outside of that, right? And I think that that's something, and I know that you're a big Joe Dispenza fan as well. And this whole idea of like quantum physics and, on a quantum level, everything is just a molecule. And so can a thought be a molecule just as much as a drug is a molecule? 100%. And can that same thought activate a pathway that a drug can activate? 100%. And so when we're thinking about it from that level, then when we're also talking about, well, if I get my thinking better controlled and I'm not constantly putting myself down or being anxious about a certain situation or ruminating about whatnot, it's like all of those things do impact our health. And I think we're finally seeing that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really great book out by Bruce Lipton, and it's called The Biology of Belief. And he started working with stem cells like back in the 70s, 60s and 70s. And also he really was at the forefront of this epigenetic exploration, as you will. So that would be something really interesting for people if they want to, know more. But what HeartMath talks about as far as the science is based, and as far as like what you just said, what has been studied is that we like to say people have depleting thoughts and they have regenerating thoughts versus positive and negative, because a lot of people get triggered by those words. They say, I'm not negative. That's not a negative thought. So, but if you think about the word depleting, how does those thoughts make you feel? Anger, frustration, jealousy, anxious, worry, all those. It really depletes you, and it depletes your energy. Regenerating thoughts, joy, happiness, even neutrality, you can feel more renewed, so it's really, it goes back to how does it make you feel? But more than that, when it is scientifically proven, when you have a lot of depleting thoughts, so you're stuck in your head, you're thinking over and over and over. We have like 65,000 thoughts a day, about 85, probably actually 90 to 95% are the same thoughts as yesterday. So, you're thinking the same thoughts over and over, ruminating about the mistake you made or the person you didn't call, or how, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And that in turn in your biology increases your cortisol levels. So we all need cortisol, and as pharmacists, we know what cortisol is and what it does. But when you have an overproduction of cortisol, it can negatively affect so much of your body. And it's thought that most chronic diseases, one of the contributing factors is an overproduction of cortisol and an increase in inflammation in your body. If you can shift to neutral or regenerating thoughts, you can't go from frustration and anger to bliss and joy, but you can go to less angry. You can go to less frustration. You can go to neutral, then work your way up. And that's what I love about HeartMath too, is, it's about these incremental changes, but again, it's that consistency of doing the practices every day. And when you decrease your cortisol or overproduction of cortisol, you can actually increase things like DHEA, which is a precursor of the happy molecule, which is a precursor to a lot of different, you go from hormones of stress to hormones of bliss, is what I like to say. Back in the ages when we if you think of like when we would run from predators, you'd get this rush of cortisol because you needed it to go, to give you the strength and to give you the ability to run away. So if you think about like a zebra and a gazelle, so a zebra sees a gazelle, it runs away, it all of its energy is going towards all of its limbs so it can run and get away. So it has no energy left for creativity, for compassion, love, joy. It's not thinking about that. It's just trying to get away. Then when it gets away and it's grazing in the pasture, the cortisol goes down and it goes back to normal, and it eats, it can digest, it, can love, look at its little zebra cub and say, oh, I love you, But what happens is in today's world, we're always running from the gazelle.
Mm-hmm.
Your boss comes in the room, he's the gazelle. Your mother-in-law calls, she's the gazelle. Your past mistakes are your gazelle. So you're always operating at this higher frequency of panic almost. And that goes into the breathing, because then most people very shallow breathe and don't really oxygenate their body. And what happens also is that the two sides of the sympathetic nervous system or autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, are way out of balance. Mm-hmm. That fight or flight kicks in, but it stays kicked in. And what to me HeartMath helps people to do is to regulate those and get them into synchronicity.
And I think that's what I think is really unique about the application, because they also have a device. And I think that having a device when we're talking about patients and people in general, right? I mean, this is useful just as much for you and me as it is for patients. But I also think that when you can see it, when you can see the thing working, when you can see that you're in the level, it's almost like a video game. It kind of makes it fun. And I think that also is really important to the success of this, because it actually makes it something that people want to do, to continue to have that for that length of time, to get that, we need that consistency as well.
Absolutely. And it almost kind of gamifies it. So with HeartMath, as I said, they have simple techniques and profound technology. And the techniques, there's a lot of information on heartmath.org. There's two sides of HeartMath, heartmath.org, a lot of resources, and then heartmath.com. And on .com, there's a lot of the training, like for practitioners. I'm a certified practitioner, as I said. So certainly you can go to HeartMath, or you can contact me. I'd be glad. I love to share this. But so there's the simple techniques, which are all about different breathing, and it's all about heart-centered breathing. And there's specific ways, and it seems very simple, but if you really when you really pay attention and practice the techniques, is very profound. And the technology is something that rates and measures your heart rate variability. So your heart rate variability, think of it as what it is basically it's the naturally occurring beat to beat variation in your heart. And what's interesting about it is that the heart rate variability is actually considered a very important biological marker for health, for biological aging. So there's a whole science, and it would take me hours to explain it, and I'm not going to do that here. Just trust me, because as a pharmacist for 37 years, I always go and study things to make sure that what I'm saying is correct. And it's also on their website, so you can, get it from there. But with the measuring of it, as you said, Jenna, we actually have a device, which is very simple. It's a very simple device. Can you see it?
Yep. And so for those of you who are listening on the podcast, we also have this podcast as a YouTube video. And so check out the YouTube video to take a look at what the actual device is. And we'll also have a link to where you can look at that in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. So basically it's just so this is one, so they have different devices. This one is the one that a lot of people use because it's very portable and it connects Bluetooth to your phone. It actually doesn't connect to your phone. It connects to the app that you download for free and to go with this, and it measures. So you wear it. So one end of it has an ear clip. So you put it on either ear. The other end of it is just the on off button, basically. So you pair it up with the app, and so many of us are used to apps and used to looking at things. So it really helps you. It can be considered a something that is a biofeedback type of device, but it's the technology in here is beyond what many other heart rate variability devices measure. And again, the science of it is very extended. And what it does, say you wear it for a 15-minute session, it will measure in real time that heart rate variability. So it will show you if you're in a coherent state, if you're in a moderate state, or if you're out of coherence. Now, coherence is really established. The heart sends more information to the brain through the vagal nerve than the brain sends to the heart. A lot of people think it's backwards, but so much of what science has proven is that in our heart, that so many of our thoughts, like intuitively, sometimes don't you know something in your heart before your brain knows it? And so that intuitiveness of the heart, that's what we're really kind of tapping into, and the intelligence of the heart, because your heart beats and keeps you alive without you even asking it to. And it keeps, where would you be without your heart? So with this device, it's really nice because you can measure it, and it's, you get so many points for being in coherence for a certain amount of time. And so they suggest a minimum of 300 a day points. There's 4 different levels. So there's a lot of, variations with it. It's not boring at all. Some people keep it on and it'll beep when you go out of coherence or beep when you go in coherence. I get a little distracted, so I turn all that off and I just close my eyes and do my meditation or do my breathing, and then it is what it is, and I'll look at it after. But I've noticed that over time, and I can tell when I have a really tough time getting into coherence because I've got a lot on my mind or I'm thinking about something. It shows. It's like, okay, I know what that is. And what this does is it helps me to kind of redirect those thoughts, just to go, meditation is really all about becoming aware of your thoughts. So thinking about what you're thinking about, and then making a choice. Mindfulness is then making a choice of what you want to think about. And we do have that choice. A lot of people think you don't, but you do. Just like you have a choice, to me, a lot of times, of being happy or not. And what do you want? A lot of people think that a lot of the mental illnesses out there, and I'm not talking true mental health. And again, I am not advocating to go off medication, not see your doctor. You certainly should do that while exploring potentially other things. And there was just a huge study that came out last week, I think in the last 2 weeks, that is disputing that depression is caused by a chemical imbalance. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I haven't seen that.
I'm going to be posting that because it was from a big journal, and it was a huge in the mental health area, a huge discovery, as you will.
Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of talks to about, we talked about this as a tool, right? A tool in your arsenal of many, many tools. And the thing that I think is so interesting too, is that yes, your heart beats for you all the time, 24/7, but your breath, you both have control over it and not control over it. And through that mindful breathing techniques, then that has control over your heart and your heart rate. And so how that brain and heart connection through the breath, I think, is also really nice to see, and to see it then, correlating on an app to give you the good brownie points and to give you the one-ups. I think that
I feel good.
right, because in the short term, that's what people need to continue a habit, right? We know that these sorts of things are habits. And once we integrate them into your life, then once you don't do it for a little while, then you realize all of the amazing benefits that it gives you. But until that happens, integrating it into your day-to-day can be somewhat hard, particularly if your life's not built around meditation or coherence or breathing, deep breaths in general, right? And so anything that we can do to make this more fun, I think is really nice. And so the company does make this one that connects through the Bluetooth to your phone, but they also make devices that as a pharmacy or pharmacy owner, or as a coach or somebody that had a brick and mortar, they could also use this for patients as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. So a patient would purchase one for themselves. They're not terribly expensive. They're under $200. There are devices that people use in their practices if patients or clients come into the office. You have one that you can use for multiple patients. But the nice thing as a coach or as a practitioner is that when somebody purchases the device, they start using it, they set up a Heart Cloud account, which is of course included in the price. There's no charge for that. And what's really cool, like I said, is that the technology is in the app. So it doesn't matter what the phone does, the app is always updated with the technology. So it's not like you have to download a new app or anything like that. But that client or patient can actually give you a code so you can look at their results. So I have a dashboard with all my clients on I bought, when you become a practitioner, you buy a software so that you have access to a dashboard, and I can actually pull up any client and I can see, are they doing it or not? Sometimes people just need that help to make it a habit. But I can also see how their results are and then coach them and help them to get better results.
Right. I think that accountability is also nice too. I think as a wellness professional, sometimes, people, they want to take a pill or they want something to be fast and easy. But what we really know is the things that work for the long haul are those changes in habits and behaviors that incrementally allow people to see that it actually works and that there is a reason to do these things. And I think it's nice to have that accountability because sometimes, people are like, hey, you told me to do these things and it didn't work. Well, but are you actually doing that? Because here on the app, you're not doing your 15 minutes a day. And to be honest, 15 minutes a day is low hanging fruit here. That is a really baseline, easy something for somebody to do.
I like that. Low hanging fruit. Yep, absolutely. I'm going to use that. And if somebody doesn't have 15 minutes a day, I tell them, well, you need to do it 30 then.
Right. 100%. Exactly.
And I think people will be amazed, even using the HeartMath techniques, doing them consistently and really intentionally, you would be amazed at the difference that it makes in a short amount of time. Maybe long-term changes and long-term effects are still there, but even in a short amount of time. I mean, I had a client recently who actually went off of her insulin.
Wow.
Because of the work that we did together, which a majority of it was the HeartMath. And then, I also do other things like EFT and stuff, but yeah, I've had patients not go on antidepressants, not go on things and just be able to really, her nutritionist said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm regulating my cortisol.
Stress. Yeah, exactly. Well, and since this is Journal Club, you did send me one of the 400 resources that HeartMath does have. And of course, because we both have a link in cancer, it's a cancer related study. And so this study looked at symptom management among cancer survivors. It was a randomized pilot intervention trial of heart rate variability and feedback. So basically utilizing the HeartMath application and software in cancer survivors. And and I think the other thing that I thought was interesting too, though, from this study was, they looked at things like stress, of course, but distress. When we have a diagnosis that potentially could kill us, cancer, diabetes is one of those. I think a lot of people don't necessarily associate that with, but it definitely can be, and that causes distress, fatigue, PTSD, depression. And they also found things like, better sleep and other things like that. And so it's not just, okay, you're having a better way of functioning in the world without all of this stress. And you're from an epigenetic level helping yourself, but also all of these markers of just general wellness, getting better sleep, being able to just function better in your life because you're not so foggy, because your brain's not full of stuff that's just bogging you down all the time.
That clarity. So to me, what the HeartMath, all of the science and all of the background is great. But the important thing is, what does it do for me, is what most people will say.
Of course.
And, to me, what I've done personally myself, besides with clients, is, so it's been a decade since almost my diagnosis and treatment. And what it has done for me in the last 2 years specifically was actually 2.5 years. I put down the alcohol. I don't need it to function. I am working with my relationship with food by being mindful. I released 50 pounds this year. I've already had lost some. So I get better sleep. I look better. I'm anti-aging. I feel like I look younger now than 10 years ago. I still have problems. Everybody does. I still have triggers, but I don't react to them the same. I don't have the inflammation in my body. Before sometimes I could hardly get my reins on, or I could hardly walk because my knee hurts so bad. Obesity, yes, but also inflammation. My A1C went from like 9 point something. I'm down to almost 6.9. It is just amazing. And I attribute all of that to the practices that I do. I have clarity. I have energy. I have energy. I have clarity. I can make better decisions. I feel I can make quicker decisions, because instead of ruminating over and over again, I can just make a decision. If it's not the right thing at the time, then I know I can change it. But that kind of thought would maybe not have been there before.
And I think too, when you have that clarity, you also have then that chance to really decide, what are my values here? And is this decision within that?
Yes.
And by doing that, that's what I found with clients for empowered decision making, is once we know what those values are, then those decisions are easier, because you're not having to figure out, is this thing important to me or not? Because you already know. And so is this in line with what I want, or is this not? It's a very easy decision.
And it's very easy now for me to really not, so no is a complete sentence.
100%.
I don't have to say yes to everybody because I need to be liked, or I just crave that love, or that I just crave something, that not being whole. Joe Dispenza has a really great line, and I love it. Most people go to his work, and Joe Dispenza is somebody who, if you don't know, look him up. He's really amazing. And he actually, a lot of the people at HeartMath in the science department, like the head of the scientific community in HeartMath, are also on Joe Dispenza's team of researchers, because he does a lot of the quantum field, a lot of this work, and he's very scientific. So he believes that science is the new word. Science is really, people need to know why. this kind of stuff happens. He had a miraculous or spontaneous healing, and you can read a story, but he wanted to know why. And now he's teaching others to do that. So HeartMath and Joe Dispenza are very intertwined also. But his saying is, most people come to his work because they want to heal themselves. They want to feel better. They want to manifest abundance. They want more money. They want a better job. They want better relationships. They want to have a mystical experience, et cetera, et cetera. But really what most people want is to feel whole and complete, because so many of us don't feel that way for whatever reason. Nobody tried to make us feel that way, but I think in our human experience, that's just what happens. Is, to me, that human experience is going through that and then peeling out off the layers and remembering who you really are. So, and this helps me to do that. And I think it's helped my clients to do that.
That's wonderful. I so enjoyed our conversation today. For anybody who is interested in Angela, in her work, in HeartMath, we'll have links in the show notes for you as well. And thank you again, Angela, so much for your wisdom on HeartMath. I think it's such a really cool technology to incorporate into something that's really old, this idea of meditation, this meditative mind. And I think that could be really useful for practitioners to help incorporate into their pharmacies or their practices as well. And so any last kind of words of wisdom that you'd like to end the show with today?
The journey is not A to B in a straight line. The journey is always fraught with ups and downs and over here and over there and going, whether it be a journey of health, a journey of business, a journey of relationships, no matter what it is. And the important thing that I had forgotten so many times along the way that I don't anymore, I shouldn't say don't, in general, I try not to, is to enjoy the journey. Because that really is what, to me, life is about, is enjoying that journey, discovering who I really am and showing up that way in the world. So enjoy the journey. It is not a destination. I want to be at my destination when I die, which is a couple decades. I want to enjoy the journey and enjoy the moment.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Angela of Angela Orr Consulting. I'm Dr. Jenna Carmichael of Wobbly Arrow Wellness. This is the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast Journal Club edition. Thank you all so much for listening.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.